Hello, welcome to another episode of the GymInformer podcast. I'm Chris Gilbert, co-founder of Classic Iron Fitness, here today with my co-founder Jason Goldman and co-host. And today our guest is Jake Hartman, owner of DSM Barbell in Des Moines, Iowa. This is a gym that Jay and I found when on our trip to Iowa. It was a really badass powerlifting gym. But before we get started, we're going to show you some photos that we took while we were at that gym working out, so that way you get a feel of what the gym's like. All right, Jake. When we were chatting before, you had told me that you initially started this gym like in your garage, and it's grown in several different stages. Could you kind of give us like an evolution and like why did you start the gym in the first place, and like the evolution of how the gym has gone from like your garage to where it is now?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I was saying before, I was getting ready to have my first kid, and I'm competing in powerlifting, and I needed something that was close to home. I couldn't travel to the gym often, so that's how the garage initially started. It started off with one squat rack, one bench, a deadlift platform. I had like a leg press, a couple dumbbells. Like it was pretty bare bones. But I mean, you've seen my gym. I try to make the floor plan as effective as possible. So it was pretty jam packed for a little 2-car garage. Over the years, I had my training partners coming over to train with me, and they were like, "Hey, you should open your own spot." And at that time, I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." You don't imagine what it could possibly be at that point, right? You're just looking at your garage and being like, "Yeah, it sounds like a lot of money to open a gym." So the first spot I actually had outside of the garage was a shared space with a CrossFit gym called CrossFit 8035. And they have a really, really nice, it's probably 7,000, 8,000 square foot space. And in the back corner, they had like a little 1,000 square foot, this is probably more like a storage closet than, an actual space that you would want to rent. But it was 1,000 square foot, and it was twice the amount of space we had in the garage. So at that point, I had a bunch of friends coming over to train at the garage. People wanted to come and train and use my space when I wasn't training. And my wife at the time was like, "All right, you got to figure something out because your friends are trying to come train in the garage with your equipment." So I made the move, rent that first 1,000 square foot spot with 8035. And we actually started that October 2019. So that was like right when COVID hit too. So we were in that spot for like 3 or 4 months before we had to shut down the spot, for a month or two. What was cool was like once I opened it, like we had 50 members like right out the gate. So I was really happy with how much traction it picked up with just having a powerlifting gym in the downtown area. And the other cool part is, when COVID happened, all my members were like, "Hey, you can charge me. Don't worry about it. Like, I want to make sure your rent is covered." Like, the community was really, really cool. It was really inspiring because that was something, as somebody who was just starting out, it was challenging. So we went through that. We were there for like a year, 50 members in 1,000 square foot spot. We outgrew that very, very quickly. So people were automatically like, "Hey, what's the next spot?" And at that point I was like, that was kind of the trial for me. That first 1,000 square foot spot was, "Hey, we'll give it a shot for a year, see how it goes. And if it takes off, we'll do something else. And if it doesn't, it doesn't." So it was pretty low commitment at that point for me, as far as the gym goes. So after that first year, I started looking for bigger spaces, and that's when we found the 5,500 square foot spot in the East Village that you guys visited. We've been there for almost 3 years now, and I just re-signed my lease for another 5 at that location. But moving in, it was a really, really rough warehouse space. Like I had a vision for it, but as I was creating the gym, I was like, this is either going to be really, really good or really, really bad, right? Like of the building phase of picking out the pieces that we want, searching for the pieces of equipment we want, getting member feedback, making sure that we're doing things right. Because at that time we were strictly powerlifting when we moved from the first spot to the spot we're in now. And obviously, when you have that much square footage, you can't just have a powerlifting gym. It's got to be more inviting to more general population, bodybuilders, strongmen, other type of training can be done in the space. So that's when we kind of evolved into less powerlifting, more, like I hate hardcore training facility vibe mentality, but like, that's what we were going for. We're looking for, somewhere that was, if you're serious about your training, that you could train there. We have the equipment and the culture and the vibes for that type of training. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today, in a very, very short recap.
Yeah, you want to go ahead, Jake?
I say segueing off that a little bit, Jake. So what is your current day policy as far as what equipment you keep in the gym, what you're moving in and out, and what you're purchasing, or is the gym pretty much set up the way you want it and there's no more of that involved?
Oh, I would love to say that this is it. Now, I've started looking at other locations just to store my equipment. I still get a lot of member feedback. Like we recently just changed the whole floor plan of the gym based on the flow of the dumbbell area, kind of how it was set up. It was a little bit claustrophobic before. So we switched some of that. We switched out a couple pieces. But, I always think about, like, if I was the member of the gym, like everybody is tied to certain pieces of equipment, right? So I look at like what's getting a lot of use, what's not getting much use. And I like, regardless if it's not getting any use at all, I feel bad because I know one person, an example is we had a standing calf raise. Like, I know one person loves this thing so much and it's going to hurt me when I get rid of them or get rid of that piece because they're going to be upset about it. So I have a hard time getting rid of stuff because of that. But I also look at like, okay, every piece needs to be able to serve like one or two purposes. So I got rid of that standing calf raise and I bought a Dynabody super squat that you can do calf raises on as well as squatting and other variations. So that's a large consideration. Obviously if I had more square footage, I have more equipment. The powerlifting side of the gym is always going to stay what it is, as far as like deadlift platforms, combo racks, couple mono lifts, that sort of stuff. And that stuff's cool to have, like the nicer stuff, but really, I love some of those older bodybuilding type, either plate loaded or select rise pieces, and finding, pieces that work really well in both bodybuilding and powerlifting and general population. That's sort of been my focus the whole time.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you have some really unique pieces, like pieces that we've seen maybe a time or two, but definitely not pieces that you're gonna see all the time. Like, I know when we were there working out, we were doing legs, and we spent quite a bit of time on that chain driven like squat machine.
Yeah, that's that Dynabody piece I was talking about.
Okay, so you probably had just gotten that then when we were there.
Yeah, it was probably a couple months old by the time you guys used that. And yeah, we got a pendulum squat machine. We got one of the old free motion V squat machines. Icarian hack squat, leg press, belt squat. Once again, it's really focused on what can powerlifters use to get stronger, A, and then B, obviously the bodybuilders are using those pieces as well. But I kind of look at like the pieces that get you the most bang for your buck, and like when you're using them, they don't feel awkward. Like that was the big thing with the super squat. It's just super comfortable to use. And props to Dynabody for coming out with some great equipment like that. But yeah, that's sort of how we broke that down.
Yeah, it's definitely right on the verge of being like what we're seeing the trend with a lot of powerlifting gyms is becoming kind of a hybrid gym. And I mean, I think we both talked about this. It's a little less expensive to start a powerlifting gym than a bodybuilding gym. And powerlifting gyms had such a community. If we want to segue into that, like I was really impressed with the community that you have there. Everybody there there was like a brotherhood, and everybody was helping each other out and cheering each other on. And like, and they were just training. It wasn't like there was a meet, but you would have thought there was a meet at certain points because, somebody's just doing a set and other people are like, yeah, great, come on.
Yeah.
It was almost like it was a meet. Like, was that something that you set out to create, or is it something that just evolved? Like, what kind of an impact have you think that you've had on creating that kind of environment?
Yeah, I mean, so when I first started powerlifting, there was one powerlifting gym in the area, and you were basically forced to train with the other guys that train powerlifting. Like there wasn't the equipment, there wasn't the gyms that there are now. So that fostered a really good team environment. It was some good competition against your training partners, but it was all like you're there to push each other and support each other. And somewhere along the line with Instagram, social media, all that sort of culture went away. Everybody was more focused on training by themselves. Everybody was focused on filming their sets instead of just doing their sets. Which I get it. A lot of people have coaches, and that stuff's important to do technique review. But that vibe of like, hey, we're a team, we're all in it together. We can work together, we can support each other. A lot of that went out the window, over the last 8 to 10 years of in my experience with powerlifting. And a lot of it's like the sport of powerlifting is just like exploded. Like it is. There's so many more lifters now than there were 10 years ago. Like, just like 10 times the amount of lifters. So with that, obviously you run into different personality types, you run into all sorts of different stuff. But the core thing for me was I just wanted to make an environment that was welcoming, that people could come and train hard, could support each other. You could have healthy competition. You don't feel bad about asking somebody to work in together. That was always the focus because that's what I was exposed to when I first started training. And I wanted to try to maintain that as much as I could.
Yeah, that was something I thought was definitely there. We were really impressed with the community that you developed there. And that's one of the things I love about like really good powerlifting gyms is that there is such that vibe of community and togetherness, and even more so than some bodybuilding gyms, because bodybuilding is an individual sport, even more so than powerlifting. Not that powerlifting is not an individual sport, but I feel like in those good powerlifting gyms, you've really got that like cheering each other on and community. It's just, and you've got a great community there. So, I thought that was pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, no, another part of that too is, I mean, a lot of those commercial gyms, bodybuilding gyms, people put in their headphones and they go and they do their thing, and like, we have people that do that as well. By all means, do what you want to do. But like, it was really weird as a power lifter going to any sort of commercial gym, even as like a moderately strong power lifter, because you're lifting, weights that are heavier than a lot of people. So people look at you naturally, but like, there's not like, it's a weird vibe anytime I trained anywhere else. And I was like, yeah, I can't have that. Like, I got to have a place where like, I feel like, I'm at home, I'm accepted, other people can feel accepted. And that's why I set out to do what I was doing.
Yeah. While we're on atmosphere, you definitely in that warehouse space have that like old school warehouse vibe. You were talking about, as a business owner, like designing what you wanted. Is that what you wanted? Like that old school, like, no, I don't want to say down and dirty, but like, it's definitely not frilly. Like,
right.
We walked in there, we were like, okay, we can F something up in here. You definitely like, you walk in there and it gives you just that vibe. Like, yeah, people go hard in here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a part of it, right? Like, I grew up working for commercial gyms. Actually, I worked for Crunch for a long time, in Chicago and Miami and New York. Like, I will say the one thing I took from Crunch is like, environment is everything, right? Like, they were the very counterculture, anti-white wall commercial gym style gym at that time. And that resonated well with me because I was not your like average Lifetime Fitness type of guy, Yeah. So yeah, when I was looking at spaces, like I had a vision of what I wanted. And obviously we're powerlifting. Like the gym is not going to be spotless clean, like trying to have it spotless clean. It's just kind of a weird thing, a weird vibe. At the same time, like I also don't care about like aesthetics of the gym. I know that's like the big thing now. Like people care about like having a gym that looks pretty. And that's cool. But yeah, like you said, we're there to train. So it's, that's its main function. So having an environment that feels like that was really important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty is not a word I would have ever used to describe the gym, but it was definitely
I call my gym pretty, but
no, I mean, it was definitely a badass vibe. So
yeah,
great job. And then we were also, organization is something we also always talk about. As guys that train more bodybuilding style, organization is very important to us because oftentimes we're going in to train a body part.
Right.
And as a powerlifting gym, sometimes that's set up that way and sometimes it's not. You, from what I remember, you really had things set up by body part.
Yeah, when we did that, changing up the dumbbell area too, we even made that better too. Like it was, a lot of those were like, we had a really, really basic gym layout 3 years ago when I put it all together. I had an idea, like obviously I want to keep all of the body parts in a similar area. I want to make sure that each, piece of plate loaded equipment has plates close to it. Like there was a lot of consideration into that, but obviously over time, like you buy more pieces, you buy pieces that are 8 foot long instead of 6 foot long. And then you buy pieces that are really wide. And then you're like, okay, where am I going to fit this into the puzzle?
Yeah.
And we did a good job of making that work, but like the new layout is like 10 times better. Like, I don't know where we got all this extra space from, just from moving stuff around. But no, I literally I care about this stuff so much that I get out a piece of paper, grid paper, and I literally measure each piece and I write down every single piece, what size it is, where I want it at, like if where the plate trees are at, where the dumbbells are going to be at, like everything. I write it all down because I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever moved gym equipment before, but it's not the most pleasant thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I
you don't do it more than once.
Right. So this was kind of like, I knew we weren't moving to a new space. So I was like, okay, we're just going to reorganize. And this is going to be kind of the equivalent of moving to a new space because it's going to be a whole new layout.
Yeah.
But like, I want to make sure that I do it right if we're going to do it. And like, it was good before, but I'm excited for you guys to come back because it is so much better now.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm up for a road trip down here in Kansas City. I can be to you in a couple of hours and
Nice.
re-review you guys. So yeah,
sweet.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things we always ask people, like, because you've had the gym now for 4 or 5 years, you've had a chance to grow. You had an opportunity, potentially thoughts of growing again, decided to stay where you are. But you've developed a really good community. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody who's thinking about opening a powerlifting gym or any type of gym that, that's starting out?
I would definitely say, if you can start small. I know a lot of people try to go in and they try to buy all this equipment. They take out a large business loan and they try to do everything that a standard, small business owner would do right out the gates. But like, it's cool to have all the fancy equipment, but like the culture is by far the most important thing. Like this started off as me and a couple of my buddies training hard in the garage, and that was it, and that's what I wanted to maintain. And once again, even when we had the big space, there was very minimal equipment in that big space when we first moved in. But people were just drawn towards it because of the community and the environment. So starting off small and growing and being smart about your growth, having a good plan for what you want to do with it. Like there's always stuff that's going to pop up, like as a small business owner still to this day, like something new comes up every month or every other month that I never thought I was going to see before. But like if you start it small and you grow it that way, those things are easier to overcome because you don't have a lot of debt. You're not dealing with a lot of headaches from that. and, you're able to manage things much better. You're able to manage the community, manage, everything. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Now, when you started the gym, I probably should ask you this at the beginning, but was this like, were you also still working? So we've talked to a lot of gym owners that like when they started their gym for the first like year or 2 or 3, they had a whole other like job and they were running the gym on the side, even though they were there a lot. And then we've talked to other gym owners that like they opened the gym and they were there 24/7.
Yeah, no, I worked a day job up until like March of this year. I was actually director of operations for a company that does like mortgage fraud reporting. So like it was a big boy job. And it was really, really challenging to juggle both of those things. But at the time, like I felt like I needed to have both. It's definitely smart to have both. I think that if I could go back, would I have done it differently? And I might have left my day job earlier. I don't think that the day job ever like prevented the gym from growing necessarily. But I definitely could have put forth more effort into the gym. And I probably would have got a lot more sleep. Felt a lot better. I mean, because when we moved into that first spot, like I'd also just had my second kid too. So I was working my day job, helping to put my kids to sleep. I would leave the house at like 8 or 9, work until, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then go home, get a couple hours sleep. And then, the kids would be waking up and ready to go again and I have to go to work. So it made that part really, really challenging. But it also like, obviously it made buying equipment a lot easier, like,
100%.
I didn't have to like worry about a lot of that stuff that like people that work at their gym and pay themselves a salary and that's their sole income, had to worry about at that point. So I was thankful to be able to do both, and like when I stopped doing my day job before, I thought about maybe doing something else to sort of supplement my income too, just because the other part of it is I wanted to make sure that for my own personal training, like when I go to the gym, that I'm excited to go to the gym. And I feel like a lot of people lose that when it becomes their main job, right? Like when you're in the gym all day, working with clients and members, like it's really, really hard to be like, all right, now it's time to go put in work for myself and go, especially in powerlifting, go lift heavy weights. So, I thought about doing something else for a little bit, as a job, so that this would kind of remain my side thing. But, I decided that it was time to make the plunge and, let this thing that I've built sort of, help me live the life I want to live now. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Did you have any other questions, Jason? I didn't have any.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and appreciate the hospitality that not only you, but your trainers and everyone else showed us when we showed up in Des Moines. And, we wish you lots of success and thank you for coming on.
Yep. No, I absolutely appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be able to do it again in a couple of years once the gym has grown and we're doing more.
Next time I come through Des Moines, I'll reach out to you and I'll swing by and get a lift in with you. So yeah,
sounds good.
We appreciate your time, Jake.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Take care.
Later.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content.